2, 1.
We're back.
We're back.
New lighting today.
And we got light coming in from all sorts of directions today. Lukas is
God's shining down on me.
Yeah, it's a mission from God. Okay. Well, we're back at the Rio Coco Cafe for another episode of A Cup of Life. And Lukas and I today are enjoying a cup of
Papa Jack.
Papa Jack. This is our coffee, Papa Jack. And
Great picture, too.
In fact, hand me...
What year was that?
That was in 1987. If you hand me my iPad...
In 1987, this guy was taking selfies in his airplane with his actual camera.
Okay, that's Papa Jack and I flying his airplane. What happened there?
Well, yeah, it's just the camera focusing.
Yeah. We're flying his Mall 7 through Mexico, and I took this picture with my Olympus 35 millimeter camera. We were just flying along that particular flight. We flew from La Ceiba to Chetumal. We checked into...
Where is Chetumal?
It's right north of the Belize border.
Is that a country?
No, it's a city in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
It's on the Yucatan Peninsula. It's all the way south, right before the Belize border. So we flew across the Bay of Honduras. We landed in Chetumal. You have to clear customs and enter Mexico, because now we got about a 4-hour flight to Veracruz.
Yeah.
And there we spent the night in Veracruz. And then we had another about a 3-hour flight to...
Was it just you two?
Matamoros.
Yeah.
We landed in Matamoros.
You're getting fuel every time you stop?
Every time we stopped, we had some adventures. We landed in Brownsville, and we had some adventures.
Well, this week we wanted to talk about Jack.
Yeah,
Jack. For our next Hero Blend segment.
Yes.
I feel like a fun way to start it off. I'll tell you the snippets of what I remember about Jack, and then maybe you can tell me about how you met him. The small snippets I remember when we were in Honduras were in his house. He had some garage-esque area or bodega with a cage.
That was the house that we eventually lived under that house.
Same house.
The same house. He had, before we moved into it, he had his ocelot.
Yes, there. So I remember seeing the cage. And I just thought this guy is
Jack had
life on the edge.
Jack had a pet ocelot. He found him when it was just a baby. I mean, just like a kitty cat, a little cat. And so Jack raised it. And when he had it in his, it was actually in his bodega. I think he had a place for it. And remember, he walked in to pet it and greet it, and do you remember this?
No.
Okay.
This was vague memories.
Okay, this is earlier.
Of being with Jack,
but the
Honduras.
Cat took both of his paws and just kind of grabbed Jack by the leg, and you could see he's tearing rips in his pants as his claws are going down, and then you see little blood spots. Jack's going, "It's okay, it's okay." He's just being friendly. Eventually, I had to take him back up to the farm and let him go.
Okay. So where was your first encounter with Jack Dyer?
Well, I came to Honduras in 1984. I was in a very remote corner of Honduras.
Is 84 the first trip or no?
First trip, November of 84. I didn't meet Jack on that trip.
Yeah.
But when I came back in February of 85... I heard about this guy that was a missionary, but he was working with World Relief at the time. Mm. World Relief was a Christian organization that when the refugees crossed the river and started coming into Honduras, they were the only organization that was working out in the Mosquitia. And so the United Nations basically made an arrangement with World Relief to build refugee villages.
This is in Honduras?
In Honduras.
Yeah.
This is 1985, 84.
But when they say build refugee villages, are they building little huts for people to live in, or what?
Literally, what Jack was doing, he was the project engineer for building these communities. You see, there were 60,000 refugees that poured across the Coco River.
Yeah,
And the remote area of Auca, Mocoron, Rus, this whole area is
rugged.
it's rugged, and there were not that many people there.
Are there roads?
There's a road that comes from Puerto Limpira up on the coast down to the crossing point at Lemus.
Okay,
But as far as other roads, there's no roads that come out from the
so it's
central.
pretty rugged.
Oh, very rugged.
Yeah.
A road out there is a pathway across the savannah.
And so,
Tire tracks
to your
across.
knowledge, a lot of these refugees, when their villages got burned and they came over,
Yep.
Was there a common congregation? Like, was there a place people were going, or were they just hanging out in the wilderness?
What happened was the Honduran army had an army base at Mocoron, which is about maybe 25 miles back from the border.
Yeah.
This was an area that before 1963, Nicaragua controlled all of this area.
But it was still in Honduras.
Before 1963, the area was controlled by Nicaragua and claimed by Nicaragua.
Okay.
Honduras claimed it, but the Nicaraguans actually had a barge that they loaded their big trucks on and crossed the Coco River at Lemos because they planted a bunch of pine trees, and they were running a forestry business.
So they were being a little invasive.
Well, they claimed it as their own. Nobody really cared. This was such a remote corner.
Right.
The Honduran government really didn't care. It's Mosquito people on both sides of the river.
Yeah.
And so the government of Nicaragua under Anastasio Somoza considered it to be Nicaraguan territory, that the border was actually a line that comes from Cabo Camarones straight down. So this whole area that's called Gracias a Dios in the Honduran maps, the Nicaraguan says this is ours. And up until 1963, the Honduran government didn't contest that, but somehow they did. So they had a war in 63. I think it lasted 5 days.
Okay,
a quick war.
Yeah.
And that's when our mechanic, Julio Santacreo.
Mm-hmm. I remember Julio.
Yeah, Julio was the mechanic for our airplanes and Jack's airplanes. And Julio told me that he was working as a mechanic for LANSA, which is a Honduran Airlines. And the military came and they were flying DC-3s.
We've been on one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A classic airplane from the 1940s, 50s. But in Honduras, the DC-3s were like the pickup trucks to get to all these mountainous communities. Honduras has lots of mountains, lots of valleys. So the infrastructure was people and cargo went in and out of these places in these DC-3s because they could do short field landings. Well, what Julio told me was the military came, gave them a bunch of bombs. They said, fly over to Puerto Cabeza, which is the city down on the coast in Nicaragua, right? And drop these bombs and come back, Yeah. So Julio looked at the pilot and the pilot looked at him. So they loaded the bombs up in the DC-3 and they took off. They got out to the Mosquitia. They were flying for about an hour and it's just barren. It's savanna, pine trees, palmettos, a lot of places where there's nobody. They just threw the bombs out the door.
Okay.
Then they flew around for another couple hours and then came back.
Good for them.
And they reported, the city was ablaze when we left. We just bombed the hell out of it.
Good for them.
But they didn't. Anyway, the World Court met and in 1963 decided that the frontier, the border between the two nations, was the Coco River. Well, this would be like the Coco River is the main route through this whole region, and Mosquito Indians live on both sides.
Right. So
this divided the Mosquito culture up into two separate nations and created all sorts of issues over the next years. But now, 1981, 82, the Sandinistas take over. Okay, less than 20 years. And now 20 years is not that long.
Right.
And so when the Cubans came and the Bulgarians and the Russians that the Sandinistas invited to come in and help control the country, the Mosquitos, who hadn't been involved in a war in 300 years, resisted the Marxist education that the Cuban teachers brought. I mean, for a number of years, and I still have it somewhere. I've got a second grade math book.
Yeah, with the
two AK-47 plus sign, 3 hand grenades. This is what how they were teaching Mosquito kids math. And the parents said, "What?" A lot of them have never seen a soldier before in these remote villages.
So in the midst of all that,
the leaders started resisting the efforts of the Cubans and the Sandinistas in these communities along the river. And guess what? They were found dead outside their villages in the next morning because the Sandinistas, there would be no resistance.
So do you know at what point Jack showed up and started building these?
So 1981, 82, the Sandinistas decided to relocate all of the villages along the lower Coco River. Remember, the Coco River starts over by the Pacific. It's the longest river in Central America, and it ends up in the Caribbean. And so this area, and they literally burned 104 villages, documented. They cut down the fruit trees, and they shot the pigs and the cows, and they burned houses. And my friend Myrna Cunningham had to cross over to the Honduran side of the river when the Sandinista soldiers came, and she watched the soldiers burn her house and shoot her cows. And so this was horrible what happened. And the result of that was 60,000 refugees crossed the river. This was 1982, 81, 82. And so they're living in this, it'd be like living out in Fellsmere with no infrastructure. It's just palmettos, it's palm trees, it's pine trees. That wherever there's water, there's like jungle and that growing along the water. But man, these people, when I met them, were skinny. Everybody was skinny. The infant mortality rate was super high. Well, when they first crossed the river, they came to the only civilized place was the army base at Mocoron, and they started just like living in just out in the bush. And the Honduran army tried to help, but the UN got called in, and because World Relief was a Christian organization that had been working with the Mosquito people, World Relief became the instruments of the refugee project. And Jack was a missionary from Church of God that was living in La Ceiba. He had an airplane, that 1953 Piper Pacer that eventually he gave to us. And so Jack heard that there were Church of God people, Mosquitoes, because the Church of God was established on the Nicaraguan side. So he flew a bunch of Bibles out.
From Louisiana?
From La Ceiba.
Oh, okay.
And he arrived at the airstrip in Mocoron, and the French doctor, what was her name? She walks out and she said to Jack, "Have you brought us medicine?" And she looked, and all Jack had was cases of Bibles. And she turned on her heel. She needed medicine. People were dying.
Yeah.
Well, Jack took the job with World Relief of becoming the engineer. He was an engineer, civil engineer. Yeah. That's what he did. He built power.
He was an engineer before a pilot?
Oh, yeah. He had a very successful business in Louisiana.
Right.
He was building power plants, big generator stations. He was wealthy. He owned airplanes. He showed Arabian horses, had the national champion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Debbie, his daughter, was a little girl that was riding the Arabian horses in competition.
Stuff I never knew there.
Jack was a very wealthy guy. And he came to Honduras only.
Sorry, was he elderly when he came to Honduras?
He probably was in his late 40s.
Okay, so he was there a while.
Yeah, what happened was Jack had a business in Banton Rouge. Dyer and what was his partner's name? Engineering. And what happened to Jack? I mean, he's a graduate at LSU. He talks like he's from Baton Rouge with a very thick Louisiana accent. And one day Jack was sitting in church, and he'd been a Christian, but he was sitting in church, and he said, "I just got so emotional that I started weeping when I was in church." And Jack's a guy that's type A and always in control. And he said, "I just felt like I was losing control of my emotions, and I was losing my mind." So he went to see his doctor, a friend, a guy named Jerry. I met Jerry one time in Baton Rouge.
And what he said, those are called feelings.
And Jerry said, "Jack, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You just have been touched by the Holy Spirit."
Wow.
And Jack said, "I have?" Well, what happened was one of Jack's neighbors came down with cancer, and Jack started visiting him in the hospital. And this guy survived. And Jack decided to go visit him at his home. And then other people started to gather. Well, Jack started a church in Covington, which was close to where he was living in Louisiana. And he became a Church of God pastor.
Yeah.
And he's doing his engineering work, but he's got this church that he's pastoring. I don't think Jack ever went to Bible school, but
Yeah.
and then a missionary came, church, I guess it was one of the denominational missionaries came, and he was going to Honduras, and he needed an airplane.
Mm.
So Jack bought this 1953 Piper Pacer.
The yellow one?
The yellow one.
Oh.
And he gave it to this missionary. And the missionary took it to Honduras, and about 4 or 5 months later, he had to go back to the States and left. And Jack thought, well, I'll just take a month and go down and fly the airplane around, because Jack was working with a bunch of churches in those mountains area behind Ceiba.
Oh, okay. So he was already doing things in Honduras.
So he came down and he was trying to, help these churches out that are way up in the mountains. The only way he could reach them is a lot of times by airplane.
Right.
Okay. Well, this is one of the things that Jack is famous for. When he got there, the pastors started taking him around to these communities. And you know as well as I do, in Honduras, we don't use salt shakers, right?
Mm.
We got salt in a bowl, right? Because it's so moist, the salt shakers clog up. You just reach in the bowl and you take a little salt and you sprinkle it over your food. Well, Jack was unaware of this custom. So when he was brought to this pastor's house, brand new to the country, and they served him coffee, Jack loves coffee. Now, Jack's telling me this story one day, okay?
Yeah.
He just took his spoon and hit that, what he thought was a sugar bowl, 2 scoops in his coffee and stirred it. And everybody around the table went, and Jack took a sip, and and everybody said, Don Julio, Don Jack, he likes salt in his coffee. So he goes to the next pastor's house, and he's got the word. So there's the salt bowl right there. And he, once again, puts salt in his coffee. And everyone's like, this guy is strange, but he's our new overseer or new helper.
Yeah.
Finally, on Friday, this is like 5 days into the trip, he's got another American with him this time. And Jack goes into the house. He reaches, as his usual custom, into what he thinks is a sugar bowl, and he puts 2 spoonfuls. And the American guy leans over and says, Jack, that's not sugar, that's the salt bowl. And Jack turns around and says, it is?
Poor guy.
So I asked Jack, I said, Jack, what did that coffee taste like? He said, brother, it's some of the worst coffee I ever had in my life. In fact, I knew I had a call to come to Honduras, but I thought if they've got this kind of coffee here, I don't think I can stick around. Jack loved his coffee, okay? He's the one, I mean, he and I drank a lot of coffee together. So
at what point?
So Jack is now building refugees and basically communities. What he's doing is in the Mosquito along the Patuca River, since they can supply it from boats coming out from Ceiba and coming up the Patuca River. See, there's a whole logistics issue when you're working in the middle of the bush, So they actually started clearing land and building these bamboo huts, and then later hand-sawed wood huts. And they were housing a couple thousand of refugees in these communities. And at the time, Wheaton College up in Illinois, where Bob Rexroad went and Kathy Rexroad went to Wheaton, a very well-known Christian college. A lot of young people volunteered to come down and work. So there was this whole group of 20-year-old kids that were down there living in these refugee villages in these communities. And I got to know a lot of them. They were sweethearted, hardworking, beautiful people. And Jack was using his airplane to fly into these communities and bring food in, take the volunteers. He would bring them back to his house. He'd usually pick a couple or 3 of about these 20, bring him to his house in Awas or Puerto Lempira, where he lived. spend the weekend. He would feed them good food. Shirley would feed him good food,
Yeah.
have cold drinks. As living in these refugee communities, it was rugged. They're eating rice and
Yeah.
beans and no refrigeration, no electricity, lots of bugs. I met Jack when we brought some cargo to Port Lempira in May of 1985. Ship the La Gracia took some cargo from Fort Pierce. I sailed with Captain Keith McFarland, who's a resident of Vero Beach still, and Keith brought a bunch of. We had some food, we had some clothes, we had refugee supplies, and he brought us to Port Lempira, and we offloaded the cargo. And I got stuck with no place to go one night, and everyone else was gone, and I heard there was this missionary guy named Jack Dyer, and I went over to his house. I had met him one time before in passing. I
This is
saw
in
him
Port Lempira?
in Port Lempira because he had an
So you were
airplane.
just there.
Yeah, and Jack took me in, and I slept in his
So
house.
you knocked on the door?
We ended up at his house, and I think somebody told us to go see Jack and Shirley. They have a spare bedroom. They'll put you up for the night or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he welcomed me in.
Wow.
Now,
Was it just you?
I think there was one or two others from the La Gracia that was with me.
Okay.
And maybe one other.
So did you know right away that you would be? Did you get the notion that you'd be working with him for a while, or was it
Not
just,
at all? But Jack saw what we were doing. He was the UN program, World Relief Program, was centered around Mocoron, which was further west. We were more east toward the mouth of the Coco River, because there was about 20,000 refugees in that area that were receiving no help from the UN. They elected to build these refugee communities in the swamp between the Cruta and the Coco River, and it was literally swamp.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to stay close to their farm, their rice and bean fields.
Yeah.
Even though the Sandinistas had burned their villages, their
still...
fields were still close by. So that's who we ended up working with. That's when we met Truman. We're on the Cruta River.
So you met Jack before Truman?
No, I'd met I met Truman in November of 84. I met Jack in May of 85.
Oh, okay. Close then. But
so over the next couple of years, Jack would just randomly stop by Alca. His plane would land.
Yeah.
And
you can't call each other back then, right?
Well, we had an HF radio.
Okay.
Well, eventually we did. At that time, we didn't even have an HF radio. But then when I was in Tegucigalpa, which during those months of 1985, about once a month, I ended up in Tegucigalpa because I was the guy bringing all the cargo and the people out. We had teams of dentists and doctors. So I would run into Jack at the airport. And I really...
Like in passing?
In passing, just see him at the airport.
Yeah.
And he would talk to me, and he recognized me and Ron and Truman and the guys. He said, you guys are doing some good work because these guys really need help. And so he started kind of becoming my advisor. He told me, you really need to have a definite program that you're doing and some goals that you want to reach so that people back home are going to support you in the ministry. And he knew we were Christians, and he knew we were there to really help our Christian brothers and sisters. And so he started kind of like being a father figure.
Yeah.
I was,
but in a different way for what you needed at the time.
He was a guy that I could always count on for good advice.
Yeah. He had the specific advice for your.
He told me, you guys need to have a program, and I said, a program. He said, get something that you're doing with goals and objectives so that you can tell the people that are supporting you back in the States, and it's going to really help you. It was God sent, know.
That's a huge...
He was a very wise man, and of course, being an engineer, he was very accomplished. He's a very type A personality. When he starts to do something, Jack could get it done.
Yeah.
So
sounds like very useful too.
Very useful. I met his wife Shirley, who was really a nice lady.
Yeah, I vaguely remember her.
Very hospitable.
Yeah.
And Jack came to Alca one weekend, and he picked me up and he took me back to his house. He was living in Awas, which is the community on the Patuca River where the Moravian Hospital has the Moravian Church has a hospital. Kenneth Serapio was the surgeon there. He was a refugee from Nicaragua. And Mission Aviation Fellowship had a base there. And Jack, that's where he had his airplane.
Okay.
Because it turns out Jack, with his finances, he was a wealthy guy, was buying gasoline and shipping it out on boats. And he was providing the gas for Mission Aviation Fellowship.
Oh, wow.
They were paying him, but he was the guy doing it. See, what happened, Dyer and Moody was the name of his company. After he was in Honduras for a couple of months, when he took over from that missionary that flaked out, he called up his partner and said, "You're going to have to buy me out because I'm not coming back."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so over the next 20 years, Mr. Moody paid Jack off monthly. And so Jack always had money, and he was always free to spend it. And he's buying gasoline, he's buying lots of food, he's buying building supplies, he's transporting out he's running his own ministry based on from the proceeds from his business. Very giving guy, okay? One day I see him in 1987. I see him in Tegucigalpa. And he said, "I got some friends coming down from Banton Rouge. I'd like to bring them out to Alca." I said, "Sure, bring them out." So a couple weeks later, Charlie and Kathy Cole arrive in Jack's airplane. Friends of Jack. Charlie says, "What do you guys need? You have some needs out here?" He was a wealthy guy himself, developer, land developer.
Oh, wow.
I said, "We need a truck, man. We need some transportation." And Charlie went back and said to Jack, I think I'm going to give $3,000 to Mike and his group so they can buy a truck. And so Jack, I saw him a couple weeks later in Tegus, and he said, "Yeah, Charlie's going to give you some money." But he said to me, "Come with me today." I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the Aeronautica Civil, the Honduran FAA. I'm going to renew my Honduran pilot's license." He said, "Come with me because you need a Honduran pilot's license." I said, "I do?" He said, "Yeah, you do." I thought, okay. I didn't have anything to do that day, so we went to the doctor, got our medical exam, went to the Aeronautica Civil. I happened to have my U.S. license, commercial multi-engine pilot. They gave me a Honduran private pilot's license.
Nice.
And I went away from that. I went back to Alca. A couple weeks later, I'm back in Tegucigalpa, and Jack said, "I got an airplane for you."
Oh, wow.
I said, "You got an airplane for us?" I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's one that I brought down here years ago, and now that I have a mall, I don't need it anymore. It's been sitting for the last 3 years, and I'm going to sell it to you." I said, "You're going to sell it to us?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How much?" He said, $7,000. I said, "Jack, we don't have that money." He said, "Well, Charlie's going to give you $3,000, so at least you got $3,000 toward it. You can put it toward that airplane." So I sent a message or wrote a letter to Charlie. "Look, Jack's going to sell us his airplane. That money that we're going to buy a truck, can we buy the airplane?" Charlie said, "Sure." Okay. So I go up to La Ceiba with Jack, and sure enough, here's this yellow Piper Pacer with a tail wheel sitting at the La Ceiba airport.
Yeah.
And Jack introduces me to Julio Santacreo, who's his mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Julio's the guy that when I met him was probably 75.
Yeah, well, we talked about Julio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Julio could fix anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack took me flying. We went out to the airstrip at Trujillo. We did like 25 landings. I could not really get the bouncing. That airplane's real easy to bounce down the runway. But Jack said, "You're good to go." And then we jumped in his mall and flew back to Banton Rouge. It was a 2-day trip. That's that picture.
Okay.
And because Jack had to take his airplane back now. When we were flying, we landed in Matamoros, which is right on the border with Texas. And we cleared customs, and then we took off, called the Brownsville Tower, that's United States, and we landed. The customs guys came out, and they said, "Hey, how come you didn't give us prior notice that you're coming?" And Jack said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you have to tell us your estimated time of arrival in the United States no earlier than 72 hours, but no later than is this little window of time that we have to advise them that we're entering the United States, drug trafficking, right?
Yeah.
And you got to give us your estimated landing time plus or minus 3 hours." And Jack said, "Well, we been in Honduras. We've been flying through Mexico. We didn't know anything about this. We can fine you $300 for not complying with that." And Jack looked at the guy and he said, "Brother, we've been flying through Mexico the last 2 days, and they've been treating us like gentlemen. And I come into my own country, and you guys are treating us like criminals.
Yeah.
What are you doing that for? What are you?"
Yeah.
And they started to back off that. Okay, we're not going to fine you. Look, I'm sorry we didn't know about the compliance. We're missionaries. Okay. We're going to search your airplane. Okay. So they bring the dog out. And Jack and I are standing there, and the dog's kind of rumming through all the boxes that Jack brings back. And he always brought 10 pounds of El Indio coffee when he came back to the States. And you remember how it's in a brown bag?
Yeah.
And it's got those little cellophane bags inside, already ground up coffee. And so the dog alerts on that box. And I see the guy, and he gives the thumbs up, like, okay, we got these guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So they bring the box out, and we're all standing there. Of course, Jack and I know what it is.
Yeah.
They open, they see the brown paper bags. Okay, they pull one out, looks like a pound of something. They tear it open. They see these little cellophane bags with dark brown stuff, and they look, and it says El Indio 100% puro.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so I go, okay, you guys are okay. So we walk back in the terminal. Jack gets to the phone. We didn't have cell phones in those days. And he calls his wife, Shirley. She's in Banton Rouge. Let her know we're in the United States. We'll be there this evening.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the DEA guy comes up to Jack and says, "Hey, I want to put a training device in your airplane for our dog." And Jack's talking on the phone. He goes, "Mike, go with him. Go ahead. Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead." So I'm walking out to the airplane with this guy, and he's holding a bag. And he said, "I want you to take this bag and hide it in your airplane." And I said, "What's in the bag?" He said, "It's a kilo of hashish." I stopped.
Yeah.
I said, "Wait a minute. You want me to put a kilo of hashish and hide it in this airplane so you can bring your dog out and bust us?"
Yeah.
I mean, you were treating us like criminals just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
"Oh, no, this is totally legit." I go, what? You think I was born yesterday? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There is no way I'm going to. You put it in the airplane. He said, "If I put it in the airplane, the dog's going to smell it on me." I said, "There's no way I'm going to do it." He said, come on. Our dog needs me. We got a lot of drugs crossing the border. We need to do this. Is totally legit. I've cleared it with my supervisor. It's totally legit. So I open the bag and I take out this brick.
Yeah.
Now, I'm familiar with bricks of hashish. I've had some personal experience with it, okay? And I took it in the airplane in the back where all the boxes were that Jack was bringing back, and I slid it under. They brought the dog out. This is an airplane with a metal fuselage. The dog does one circle, and he comes on the bottom of the airplane, puts his nose right on the fuselage, right where I put that. And that's when I realized I'm never going to be a drug smuggler.
Yeah.
That dog knew exactly where it was.
That's what the guy said, thanks? So he wasn't trying anything funny.
No, he was just giving his dog an opportunity.
Yeah, I would have said the same thing. You go hide it.
Yeah.
Or have your buddy hide it.
So Jack almost got us in trouble because of his love for coffee. Okay.
So speaking of love for coffee, when you were doing the Hero Blend thing, what was the first one that you did, or did they all come out at the same time?
I think it was Papa Jack.
Was it Jack?
Because okay. Jack.
I was gonna say. So what? When you had the idea to do it, what are some of the deeper things that you thought? Well, I gotta have Jack.
Well, Jack ended. Okay. Well, let me just finish. Let me just continue the story here. Refugee crisis ended. Jack bought property up in Las Mangas behind Ceiba, and he started a dairy. Remember?
No.
Okay. And he had cows, and his cows were winning the milk competition at the Lady Dairy every year. He's trying to make money because Jack's a businessman.
Yeah.
And he's making money to fund the ministry. And because he's an engineer, he met a doctor that came to Honduras, I think, and she worked in India. at a place called the Woodstock. It was a school that rich Indian kids go to up in the Himalayas, and they needed some work on one of the.
Okay.
So Jack goes to India, and he does a repair on this 100-year-old missionary school for kids.
Like
And
by himself, or
just he's supervising because he's an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. He went back a couple years later, took his boy that he was caring for, Hassan, Jason, and they lived in India. And Jack built a wing on the hospital. And while he was there, he met the Dalai Lama.
Oh, wow, cool.
Okay. And you know what the Dalai Lama did? He asked Jack to teach a group of 30 Buddhist monks the Bible.
Wow, interesting.
And so Jack did while he's doing this construction project. And the Dalai Lama would come in the classroom and tell those Buddhist monks, pay attention to Jack. He's telling you the truth.
Wow.
And Jack was convinced that the Dalai Lama was a follower of Jesus, but just couldn't tell anybody. In fact, where's here. Here's a picture of Jack and the Dalai Lama. Pretty incredible, guys. That's all I got to say. Jack had a remarkable time. Well, while he was building the hospital, there was getting from his house to the building site. There was a ravine, and the trail went down around the ravine and came around. But as Jack's walking up one day, he's seeing a lot of guys hop over. It's about 5 feet across this ravine. Instead of walking all the way, he decides to run and jump. And he doesn't make it. And he falls and he hurts his back. And now he's really in deep pain. And when I finally met him and caught up with him, and this was in early 2000s, I went to visit him in Banton Rouge. He had a little pump on his back where he was injecting medicine because he was in a lot of pain.
I didn't realize that injury was so gnarly.
Yeah. But it was Jack thinking he could jump this in his 60s. It'd be like me trying, just stupid stuff, right?
What year was it that he came and hung out with us for a few days in Wasp Palm?
2007.
That's 2007.
Yeah.
That was the last time I saw him.
Yeah. So this was probably 2012 when I saw him in Baton Rouge.
So he went home and was
he was home and retired, and he had a Bible study going. He was doing work at his church. We went and visited him. Just had a really nice time. Yeah. I just wanted to go and visit him because I hadn't seen him in a while. And then the next time was a couple years later, and Craig and Kathy Englert were in New Orleans. They invited us to come and stay with them. Craig and I went up to see Jack.
Oh, cool.
And he said, brother, I don't understand why I'm still alive. Yeah. The Lord, why isn't the Lord taking me home? Because his life was pretty miserable for him, I think. And
he was all banged up by then.
And then a couple years later, he passed. And when he passed, I made a blend of Honduras Light and Honduras coffee, and I made a label, and I made it to pass out to the friends at the funeral, Papa Jack, and that was the start of our hero blends. Because Jack taught me how to be a bush pilot.
Yeah.
Flying as I did in the Navy, I was not familiar with small airplanes, and landing on short airstrips that are narrow with cows and pigs and horses running around.
Was it more challenging than you thought?
Very challenging.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Jack, there was one place, Musawas, where he built this refugee community. It had a short 800-foot airstrip.
That's pretty tiny.
Very tiny. And the only way to land there is you had to fly over the trees and actually get down in the riverbed and fly about 20 feet above the river, the Patuca River. The river took a bend. I made this landing with him a couple of times. And as soon as the river it bent back to the right, and the airstrip is right on the riverbank, and you had to turn and put the wheels down right on the riverbank.
Wow.
And come to a stop. Jack was a good bush pilot. He taught me how to fly safely in that environment. And just one of my dear, dear friends. But it was very inspirational for me in his commitment to bringing the gospel to these people.
Yeah.
And to serve them, and using his own personal finances to fund it all.
I knew he was an engineer. I didn't realize he was such a successful engineer, and then became a missionary. Talk about philanthropy.
Yeah, he built like big power plants. He would,
Yeah.
and he would work in oil fields, building refineries and stuff. He was on that level of
Wow.
engineering. So I know that Jack, if people in the next dimension can see what's going on in
Yeah.
this, I know that when I'm drinking a cup of Papa Jack, and this is what the mosquitoes called him, Papa
Yeah.
Jack, you know.
I remember that too.
Yeah, that was his nom de guerre, his war name, you know, Papa Jack.
Yeah.
And the guy had incredible influence. He was a world shaker, and
I remember the visit in Waspam. He his way of communicating was very entertaining.
it was
And it was like he was a great storyteller.
very much so.
He was pretty direct, I think.
Hmm.
And I just remember him talking about all the different ways that he kept getting caught up in in what was happening in Honduras and Nicaragua. And it was like he always thought he would do this thing and then he would be done. But it was like it kept going from
One chapter to the next, to
yeah,
the next, to the next.
yeah, that reminded me of us a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He was during the '80s. Jack was one of the main factors in keeping those refugees fed and supplied, and keeping the Mission Aviation Fellowship base going. I mean, literally, the guy was buying barrels of gasoline in San Pedro Sula and shipping them out to Puerto Limpera
yeah.
and hauling
That's a
them.
crazy operation in itself.
Oh yeah,
You know
no,
what
I mean the whole logistics of give you aviation
Yeah.
fuel, you know.
Well, the logistics, and plus just somebody at the end of the day, it's somebody's got to hand somebody some money,
Right,
you know,
right.
and that's you know,
We did it on a small scale. We would buy one barrel of gasoline,
yeah,
ship it out to Puerto Limpera, and I kept it at Trenoli's house, and I would go up and with my 5 gallon cans and I would fill it up and fill our airplane up whenever I was coming up from Alca, and we would get that one refilled and shipped out because there was a company that would do it once a week, and so
How did that work out that he ended up in Waspam that year? Was it just to come see us, or
he knew that he was going to be moving back to the States.
was he living where in
At the
Ceiba,
time, he
or?
was living in Ceiba. He lived right next door to
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
remember?
yeah. That's when I remember, you know, seeing the cage and
Uh-huh.
you know thinking, man, this guy's got some wild pets. Like,
Well, his whole property up in the Cangrejal River behind La Ceiba, when Hurricane Mitch came in '98, that river rose 60 feet. You remember how narrow the valley
Yeah.
is, and all of his pasture land got taken out. A bunch of
Wow.
his cows got killed. It totally wiped out his dairy operation. And it was after that that he made his trip to India and started building
Yeah.
a hospital there. But Jack, to me, was a dear, dear, dear friend. And
And he survived by Danny and who else?
Danny and his son Dennis and his daughter uh, Debbie.
I feel like I've only met Danny, huh?
Yeah.
And we went to hang out with them in
And Tegucigalpa.
Tegus, right?
He runs a ministry there that has churches in every prison in Honduras.
Wow, okay. He's also a great teacher. Very
Yeah.
funny.
No, that's
Entertaining to hang out with.
very entertaining. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just very cool that God put us next door to Jack and Shirley in La Ceiba.
So how many years were you neighbors, quote unquote?
From 80, I lived upstairs at Doña Amelia's house in '86, and Jack and Shirley lived on the apartment on the bottom floor,
Yeah.
and Doña Amelia lived and Susie Burris lived in the house next to him. And when Susie went back to the U.S. to get a job as a teacher, Laura and I had just married in '88, so '89 we moved into that house.
And that's the house, the
that
green
you
blue.
that you grew up in.
Yeah, mahogany house.
And
So was he around when I was an infant?
Oh yeah, of
He
course.
was, okay.
Oh no, we were over at his house
Yeah.
usually once or twice a week. We were having a meal with him.
Yeah.
And I have pictures of Michaela learning to walk and just
Mhm.
walking around,
Yeah.
and Shirley grabbing, and you too, the same thing. You know,
That's what I mean. I have these vague memories of walking on concrete and
Mhm.
being in a garage kind of space.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, um, yeah, but it's funny to think about somebody that knew you as you were born, right? And then I'm trying to remember all these any memories I have of him there in Honduras during that time. Um,
Jack was a character.
and so you guys left, and he was still in Ceiba.
No, when by let's see, 2000, Jack was still living in the apartment. We moved to Nicaragua in 2000. We left our house,
Okay.
and Jack continued to live there and run his farm. And then he went to India, and we kept track of him, but we didn't see much of him in
Right.
those years.
Where and so did his wife go with to India?
No, she didn't. She stayed in either Banton Rouge or La Ceiba. I don't
Okay.
think she went to
And
India.
she's passed away now as well.
She just passed away last year. She
Oh,
was in her
really?
90s, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And but incredible guy.
Yeah. Well, I feel like so. What I feel like when I think of him and think of you, I just think, um, what providence that you guys would meet, and that you would have that kind of mentor in your life to show you the ropes a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine him walking up to me at the Toncontin airport and saying, "What are you doing today?"
Right.
I said, "I'm just waiting for some friends. I don't think they're going to make the flight." "Well, come with me." "Why?" "Well, you need to get a private."
Yeah.
He had this all planned out. He had
Yeah.
that airplane sitting there. He knew that we needed an airplane. He knew I could fly the airplane. And he just said, "I'm going to sell it to you." $7,000 for the airplane.
Is that
Okay.
so? What is that? Was that cheap for that or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. It's in registered in Honduras, and
Yeah.
Julio became my mechanic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was the easiest way for me to become a legitimate bush pilot.
Yeah. Right.
Got a plane. Got
Well,
a
it
mechanic.
really enabled you to continue
Oh.
doing the work you were doing.
Oh yeah. And the flight from La Ceiba in that airplane was about 2 hours and 20 minutes to get all the way out to our airstrip in Auca.
Yeah.
And the fly out there was a challenge every time because there was no nav aids. It was all visual navigation. Fly along the coast, cut through a little valley through the mountains, find the Patuca River, go southeast, find the next lagoon. If you're off, get over to the coast, fly that, then look for the two barrels that I had at the end of each airstrip that I painted white because the airstrip could kind of just disappear in the tundra, you know.
That's
and
so.
Then land, you know.
Yeah, the pre-GPS.
Oh yeah.
That's like in that World War II show, Masters of the Air. The guy in the back looking at the map, looking out the window, freaking out.
I had my map on my lap, and I'm just looking
praying
left
to God
and right,
that you were right.
and I'm looking for bends in the Patuca River.
Yeah.
There was a certain place where it did this, and I knew I wanted to be right there.
Yeah.
And then I had another lagoon that came down, and at the tip of it, I flew right past that one. Then I knew that Auca was going to be about 15 minutes in front of me. I just had to maintain that heading.
So he really set you on the path to becoming a
safe
bush pilot,
missionary
bush pilot.
Even though every time I got in the airplane, I'd always do a quick pre-flight.
Yeah.
Jack would only pre-flight at the beginning of the day. And he accused me of dancing around like an Indian around, doing my war dance around the airplane. I was terrified of that. That airplane I knew could kill me, you know? So I'm like super safe. Like this flight could be my last. Anything can happen out in that environment. You're dealing with an airplane that's almost as old as you, you know? And
with fabric wings.
And I'm responsible for the maintenance, me and Julio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love making Papa Jack coffee. I love looking at the pictures. I just think it's a way to keep Jack's memory alive.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about when we were at the Mexican restaurant the other night, the Mexican celebration, the Day of the Dead, you know, and they have these symbols of the skeleton heads, which I used to think was kind of an evil, but actually it's their way of remembering people like Jack, because I think we saw the same movie where the guy said, as soon as we stop that, they die.
Well, the last time someone says your name is when you really die.
When you really die.
Yeah. Well, for us, we get to say his name all the time.
Yeah.
Right here.
Right here. Papa Jack. Here he is. and it's a delicious Honduras organic coffee. We light roast it. It has some distinct lemon tones in it.
Yeah.
The dark roast got some delicious, delicious chocolate tones.
It's really perfect that it worked out that way with the blend, you know?
Yeah.
Honduran coffee through and through.
Right. And
a little light, a little dark.
And when I'm bagging this up or when we're roasting it, I think of that DEA agent handed me that piece of hashish at kilo. I mean, and just the terror I had, we're going to get busted. We're going to be in jail.
He's indifferent over there. Mike,
go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, put it in there. I'm talking to Shirley on the phone, and just when I think of drinking coffee and Jack putting sugar, or what he thought was sugar, and it's salt, and thinking he's going to have to refuse the call of God because Honduras has such awful coffee.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share.
Okay, so let me ask you, what one thing, observing and knowing Jack's life, do you come away that might be something that might guide you in your life?
I just the thing that stands out to me about someone like him is that he accomplished a lot, but he also let himself and his talents and gifts be used, and he didn't limit. I don't think he limited himself based on just the fact that he was an engineer or this and that.
Well, he became a dairy farmer.
Right, exactly.
And he was growing cacao on that property.
So he was adaptable,
right?
And he got good at other things. And I'm inspired by that, big time, because I find myself, whether it's the coffee business or something else, it's like you hit a point in a learning curve where you want to walk away. You go, I can't do that, but you got to push through that. And so when I'm thinking about these stories, I'm thinking about all the moments that you guys must have had, that moment of I gotta walk away, but you can't because
people are dependent on.
There's that, but you're also physically somewhere deep, and you gotta fly yourself back. And it's like, he put himself in those positions for years.
Yeah,
and it is crazy to think that what took him out was a silly jump over a
ravine. And his son Danny, when Danny was telling me that story, he goes, "My dad, he just thinks he can just hop over like those 20-year-old kids are jumping over there," and he just almost made it, just slipped, and really hurt his back. You know?
And maybe there's something poetic about that, where it's like all these bush flights, all these crazy landings.
Of all the things that could take Jack out, and make him retire, is a jump over a ravine and somewhere in the Himalaya in India, right? Because extraordinary life, extraordinary man and his family, the legacy in his family. Is
well, with us too. We're gonna speak his name for a long time.
So, I want to encourage you guys. Jack is a great example of a man who didn't understand that God was going to call him to a career in a place where he never really dreamed about going, and doing stuff that he was well qualified for, but he never thought about doing. It wasn't like he was sitting in his office one day and said, "I think I'll go help Mosquito Indians in a remote corner of Honduras." But God had that plan and had prepared him very well, trained him to be a really good pilot, gave him money so that he could have his own airplanes, fund his own maintenance, fund his own little Air Force.
The whole thing. I mean, that's crazy. All the different stuff.
I made up T-shirts at one point, the Mosquito Air Force, and I had a little logo, and I gave Jack a couple shirts. I gave Julio a shirt. I gave Barry Watson. I gave the MAF pilots. We were the Air Force. We were the only guys flying in this region. There were about 5 or 6 of us, and we all had great fellowship, because when we got together, it was like we're still doing it.
We're still alive.
We're still doing it. So anyway, I hope you'll take some time and enjoy some Papa Jack. You'll find it at realcocobeans.com, and our Heroes Blend, along with our Java Jake, our Sky Larkin, our Global Jones, our Ron and Jean, and these other coffees, blends that we have. We love the coffee business. We love remembering our friends.
We're proud of the product, but we're more proud of our friends. That's for sure.
So
Aloha.
to Papa Jack.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.